Hello. I had a recent request to share some of my thoughts on hypnosis, and I thought that might be of interest to several people. I should start off by saying that I do not practice or use hypnosis exclusively as a modality. My primary modality is that of talk therapy, informed by psychodynamic understanding. But I've had some training and experience in hypnosis. I am sure that some people who are more fluent in the use of hypnosis and who uses it more exclusively might disagree with some of my thinking and suggestions. But as I said, these are just general thoughts. So let's start off by asking the question, what is hypnosis? Now, again, you are likely to find as many different definitions or ideas as to what constitutes hypnosis as you are likely to find practitioners. I think the following would be fair statements to make about hypnosis. Obviously, hypnosis, or the state of hypnosis, or what we generally call trance, cannot be the same as everyday experience. Otherwise, it wouldn't have a specific name, or there wouldn't be specific procedures and experiences that accompany this. So it is a special or a different state of mind from our usual state of mind. It is usually characterized by what we call an altered state of consciousness. Now, that is a tricky description because we alter states of consciousness every day, right through the day, and the most vivid of these is, of course, when we go to sleep at night. But it's definitely not the only way we change states of consciousness. So I think to clarify, in the context of our conversation, it is an altered state of consciousness brought on by a specific procedure, and usually for specific goals. So there is a deliberateness to this. So other states of consciousness that are altered might come about because of, well, different reasons. Some of them might be deliberate. If you have a cup of coffee or some other mind-altering substance, you are definitely doing something deliberate, and you are doing it mostly because you desire or expect an altered state or some form of alteration to occur. So there's some deliberateness in that, but it's not usually the alteration in state is a desired goal, but usually in hypnosis the desired goal is not merely the state, but what happens while one is in a state. Okay, so there is a deliberate procedure that is employed either by self or by somebody else, with some particular outcome or pursuit in mind, to be achieved while the person is in that altered state. Now, again, the notion of altered state may and does often conjure up images or ideas for people that there's something radically strange or alien about that state of consciousness. And the truth of the matter is that we experience these states of mind and altered states quite regularly in different ways. Of course, it's not always as dramatic and as ritualistic as the induction of a hypnosis might be, but there's nothing particularly foreign about the states of mind we're going. All right, now what is this state of mind that I speak of, or this altered state of consciousness? Maybe I should just say this, that when I speak of altered, I mean an alteration from what we would generally regard as our usual state of conscious awareness while we are awake. All right, as I said, people sometimes have the expectation of something quite dramatic, and usually it has to do with some form of almost falling asleep or something like falling asleep. Now, there are definitely states of trance that have features that look a lot like sleep. Generally, that level class of experience is spoken of or called somnambulistic, derived from the word for sleepwalking. So in implying that it is not exactly sleep, there is some kind of action or capability there that is usually not present in sleep, but there is something sleep-like. Those states can be achieved by some people, not everyone, and it is not necessarily even desirable for that kind of state to be achieved. So who can be hypnotized? So you will often hear people say things initially like, my personality or my mind or my intellect or something to that effect is too strong, I cannot be hypnotized, implying that hypnosis or hypnotizability has to do with some form of weakness, and there is really no reason to think that. There's nothing in research or in practice, clinical practice, that suggests that there is a significant amount of information that suggests the opposite, that it is people who are fairly creative, fairly intelligent, who are capable of being hypnotized. Maybe the people who propose that kind of idea of weakness might refer to people who are easily influenced by others, who do not hold strong opinions of their own. That, of course, is not quite the same as hypnosis. Although some of the techniques in propaganda and maybe even advertising may make use of certain techniques that overlap with hypnosis. Not everyone seems to be able to achieve trance through hypnosis. It's difficult to put a number to it. It seems to be around 70% of people are capable. And within that 70%, there will also be fluctuation in terms of capability. Some people will be more susceptible to the suggestions that a hypnotist makes, or even in self-hypnosis. But within that 70%, give or take, most people will be able to achieve some form of trance and absorb and use some kind of hypnotic suggestion. I don't know that there is any significant research suggesting why the other 30 or so % of people are not hypnotizable. So that is not a question I can answer. Maybe there's something out there, but I am not aware of any such research or findings. So how would one know if one is in this altered state of consciousness? So again, it's not such a simple answer. People who are quite sensitive and aware of their states of mind might be able to notice this. With some training, of course, one may be able to notice this. But very often, at least initially, when people are relatively unfamiliar with this state of hypnosis, it is only after the fact that they notice this. So again, different people may notice different things, and again, it depends on what the hypnosis is used for. recently I used a brief induction, relatively brief, but a brief induction for the alleviation of pain. So for that person, one of the main features of knowing or realizing that the hypnosis did work was that in fact the pain was alleviated. Sometimes, if that is the course of action, people will exit the state feeling very relaxed. Relaxation is often both a cause and an effect of hypnosis, but again, it's not necessarily that one would always pursue the deepest state of relaxation, although relaxation is very useful for achieving altered states of consciousness. So things like relaxation, things like a particular outcome that, like pain alleviation that is present. Something that often is remarked on is the sense of time distortion. I might do, 40 minutes or so of hypnosis, and when we exit the trance state, the person would remark, sure, that didn't feel like 40 minutes, it felt like just 10 minutes or so. So there's a sense of time distortion. The list goes on, but these are some of the features that people may pay attention to or may notice. Of course, depending on what the suggestions are that are made and the focus of the hypnosis is, people may also notice changes happening. Now, okay, we'll get back to speaking about changes. All right, so point I'm trying to make is that, at least initially, for many people, the recognition of an altered state of consciousness, the one that we speak of now, trance, is only recognized in retrospect. Of course, once you know that the person that you have some trust in, who has hypnotized you in the past, so you've gone through the process and you've subsequently realized that you were in fact in an altered state called trance, and you go back and there is a repetition of sorts, at least, maybe an identical repetition of the ritual or the process of induction, that is the process of inducing this altered state. There is the anticipation of entering into that altered state, and you are more likely to recognize that more easily and sooner. All right. Part of the way to recognize and think about the presence of trance is both in terms of process and in terms of content. Process may refer to things like time distortion or altered states of perception. In this particular case, the altered state of perception may vary widely, again depending on the goal of said trance. But for instance, growing more and more relaxed might be part of the content that the person is experiencing, or the process. It might also be part of the content, but part of the process, so growing more relaxed. One of the main features that is part of hypnosis is something that we call dissociation. Now, this dissociation is also a term that is used in certain types of psychopathology. This is a deliberate pursuit of a certain kind of dissociation. This dissociation is one where, for instance, you dissociate or you associate less with normal concerns, the outside world, and you become more focused on the process and content of the conversation or the induction or the dialogue that happens, the interaction that happens between you and the person providing you with hypnosis. speaking of concentration, that is part of my favorite way of defining hypnosis, that is a special way of paying attention to experience. So it has to do with a kind of attention that is not as wide and as general as our usual forms of attention. So it is often a narrowing of attention, which is different from the modern notions of mindfulness. Well, not that mindfulness is modern, but in the sort of more modern Western descriptions of mindfulness, where there's a more of an open focus. So there tends to be more of a narrow focus in hypnosis. So it is a specific use of attention accompanied by a certain kind of dissociation, or stepping away from usual ways of being aware and attached to the world and concerns. All right, so speaking of content can vary incredibly widely. What is most often used and utilized in clinical practice is behavior change, or to focus hypnosis on change in behavior, in thought, and maybe some form of exploration. Hypnosis is often thought of and maybe even utilized for pursuits of what shall we call it? Let's say mystical, or let's call it mystical states or mystical experience. Now, this gives you an idea of the range of content one might look at. So any behavior, any mental state, any emotional state, any relational state. These may have to do with things in the outside world, or these may have to do with things in the internal world. These may be things that are related to what we may refer to as reality-based, or these may be things that are based in more imaginative and maybe even fantastical types of experience. Alright, so I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to stop here. This is just a brief introduction to what hypnosis might be. I think in my follow-up I'll speak about some of the things that hypnosis can be used for, and maybe suggest a path or a stepping stone kind of idea how to use hypnosis. Thank you.